Well, when I was in either kindergarten or first grade, I was either 5 or 6 years old, and a little boy, I don't know what he was saying. He said something to me about like girls should stay home and just cook and clean, and boys should be the one that get to go out and play sports and have fun and all this stuff. And I was so angry. I went home and I said, Mom, what should I say to him? And she said, well, you could tell him he's a male chauvinist pig. And I was like, okay. I didn't even know what it meant, but I remember my mother writing it down for me on a piece of paper. And I went back to school the next day and I took out the piece of paper and I said, you're a male chauvinist pig. And I remember the teacher saw me and she saw the note and she just thought it was the most hilarious thing she had ever seen. She had never seen a little girl do that. Everything I've done I've had a commitment to racial equity, gender equity, all of these issues. And that goes directly back to my experiences at Northwestern University, and the Women's Center was definitely a big part of that.
The Women's Center has organized film screenings, workshops, speak-outs, fireside chats, concerts, guerrilla theater, self-defense courses, lesbian and bisexual women's teas, rallies, and potlucks for feminist therapists. It has also hosted support groups for grad students, mothers, Black women, and sexual assault survivors. It has helped women register to vote, finish their dissertation, find jobs, and negotiate their salaries. It has supported women in taking control of their bodies and their health with programming on reproductive rights, HIV/AIDS, depression, eating disorders, stress management, or even how to do breast exams. Issues covered have included incest survival, divorce, spirituality, sexual assault prevention, disabilities, and navigating racism on campus. It's impossible to really list everything the Women's Center at Northwestern's done. It's been really a fascinating journey for the last 30 years, but what I can say about it is that it has been feminist at its core.
So this is how I would like to think about the Women's Center. So there was like when the Women's Center was founded by June Terpstra. June Terpstra founded the Women's Center, and then she had to begin to address basic issues. So the first phase of the Women's Center was more about just the basics, the nuts and bolts. And so June Terpstra's job was very difficult in the beginning because you are the new director and you're beginning to bring to the table conversations that some of them are not so easy to have.
There were issues on Northwestern campus particularly, and I'm sure this hasn't changed much at all, on race and class. We absolutely knew that we didn't want this to be a middle-class white feminist program. And then I would say the third thing that was very clear to us from the beginning was we needed to have a counseling program that would absolutely focus on issues of women for faculty, staff, and students. And we were real clear that we wanted it to be faculty too, because many faculty women really suffered from a lot of just real PTSD.
We're using concepts like intersectionality. Now, June got that, as our founding director, and so that set up a wonderful foundation for Renee to come in and continue that work as an African-American woman. So you see in Renee's programming a commitment to LGBTQI women. You see a commitment to women with disabilities. You see a commitment to our staff, both here at the Evanston campus, but then as she founded the Chicago campus Women's Center in 2000. And most readily, she was a clinician. She's a psychologist by training, a clinician, and she really strengthened our 28-year running counseling program.
You don't want something that smells like feminism, and the Women's Center doesn't just smell like it, right? It sort of is. It's the presence of a movement like feminism on campus. The presence of it very clearly puts the spotlight on the need for it. It makes you question the reason for its existence, which is the very accurate fact that there is sexism, homophobia, transphobia, racism on campus. Kay and I were kind of a very visible queer couple on campus, and sometimes it could feel very, you would just feel all the stares, and I think especially when you're newly out, it can be really hard to gauge, everything feels very threatening, It took a really long time for us to feel safe, sort of like even just holding hands and walking around. There was twice where we got followed. A lot of the time, I would go to the Women's Center in the aftermath of sort of like maybe being like afraid. There's a lot of folks there who are really dedicated to creating like a really beautiful space and sort of deeply thinking about what that space meant in relation to the university.
Any institution that is challenging oppression in any form, to do that effectively, it has to be real. You have to build relationships that are not just transactional, you have to build relationships that are transformational and genuine. And my experience of the Women's Center was those were the relationships that people built with me. During my sophomore year, I was actually questioned in a federal investigation that involved basically a witch hunt of female students on campus who had taken any kind of position on women's issues because of a threatening package that was sent to the president of the university. So I go to university police, and the officer's sitting there and the postal inspector's sitting there, and they start asking me questions about, well, you're, part of some of these radical feminist groups. And I said, well, I'm a member of the Women's Coalition, if that's what you mean. Well, you've written some things and you're pretty vocal and you've got some issues, some issues about, the university and whatever. And I said, well, I've written a couple of things, maybe. But then they just said, well, this, we're doing an investigation about some people causing trouble, and we need to take your picture and take your fingerprints. And so I gave them, my fingerprints and photograph and whatever. And then I left, and I was terrified. I really had no idea what to do. And I talked to some friends of mine. I was doing a work-study job in the performance studies department, and they said, you need to call the ACLU. So the ACLU got involved, and that's when they started an investigation and realized that there were many, many women who had been questioned. But my friend, my sorority sister who wrote for the Daily Northwestern, she said, I want to write a piece about this, but we need a name. And so that's when I told her, I said, okay, you can use my name. So I think the headline was Bomb Suspects Questioned, and there's my name like right in the first sentence of the Daily Northwestern story. And it was Joki Kamau, who is still the associate director at the Women's Center, who called me. She looked in the student directory and she called me and she said, how are you? Even my own family didn't know how to support me through that, but she did.
See, previously I was a graduate student at Northwestern, across the street at Kellogg. I was a PhD student in marketing, and at that time, there was no Women's Center at Northwestern University. And, I think back a lot of times and wonder if there had been a Women's Center, how it would have helped me, because I actually became a victim of domestic violence. And when I finally did start addressing it, and I ended up going to a domestic violence program right here in Evanston. And actually I was finding out that I had a lot in common with other women. And that's what really surprised me, because I thought of myself as a very strong woman. I had several degrees to my name. I think I had started working on my 4th degree. There's a way in my mind I had thought that perhaps not for women like myself. But when I went to that program, I began to realize that this is something that happened to, a lot of other women, to my disappointment to a lot of other women. And, the stories they were telling were sounding very familiar. So really that's how my passion and interest in the work that I do up to this day was born.
So much of what Northwestern implements in terms of inclusion and in terms of understanding and sensitivity and diversity is reactive when students put their foot down and demand better. The Women's Center has been here for 30 years doing that work. And I think that's really unique on this campus.
The Women's Center specifically shines a spotlight and then kind of is a place to go.
I see us as a catalyst, as a voice, as a place, if you like.
We are often what I call frontline workers. We hear it, we translate it, and then we bring that back to the larger campus to be articulated for policy.
How far have we gone? How far have we come? Yes, we have come some way because now we have places where people can go, we have policies, but are we there yet? No.
We need a women's center to be bringing these issues to the surface more now than ever.
And I think the more people that we reach, the further we can expand gender equity at Northwestern.
There needs to be a space on campus where the women who are here can feel welcome and safe.
So it is all women. It is women of color. It is LGBTQ women. It is low-income women. It is immigrant women.
I'm a Black lesbian feminist. I navigate these spaces in a personal and political way all the time. So this is home.
The Women's Center is critical for the health and well-being of Northwestern, for the broader community, for the times that we're living in. I really hope that what's happening now in our society can be a call to action, a signal for the university to really support the Women's Center to just go to the next level, to be even bigger and bolder and more vibrant than ever for the next 30 years and beyond.